Omaha Beach, Normandy, France. Operation Overlord. I was a combat medic with the 1st Infantry Division, the big red one. My weapon was a canvas bag, morphine syrettes, bandages, and whatever courage I could find that morning. The sea was rough. The landing craft pitched hard enough to throw men against each other. Most of us were already soaked before the ramp dropped. I remember the smell. Diesel fuel mixed with vomit and fear. We were heading for Omaha Beach, dog green sector. We all knew the plan. We all knew it would fall apart the moment the ramp went down. At 6:30, the ramp dropped. The first sound was not gunfire. It was metal tearing apart. German MG-42 machine guns opened up from the bluffs almost immediately. The noise was different from anything I'd heard. Faster, harsher, like fabric ripping endlessly. Men fell before they took 3 steps. The water turned dark with fuel and blood. I jumped into chest-deep surf, trying to keep my medical bag dry. A man next to me, I never learned his name, was hit in the throat before he could scream. He collapsed forward and disappeared under the waves. We were supposed to clear the beach in minutes. Instead, we were pinned down for hours. The Germans of the 352nd Infantry Division were waiting for us. They had concrete bunkers, overlapping fields of fire, 88mm guns, mortars, and pre-registered artillery coordinates. The beach was covered in Czech hedgehogs, mines, and barbed wire. Our naval bombardment had missed most of them. We learned that very quickly. Men tried to hide behind obstacles that offered no protection. Sand kicked up in sharp bursts as bullets struck inches from faces. You could not raise your head without risking it being taken off. As a medic, I wore a Red Cross armband. It did not matter. I crawled. You did everything low. Crawling, dragging, pulling men by their webbing straps. The first soldier I reached had lost his leg below the knee. A mine. The wound was clean in the worst way. Flesh shredded, bone visible. He was still conscious. He kept asking if he could keep his boot. I applied a tourniquet and gave him morphine, marking an M on his forehead so no one would overdose him later, if there was a later. There were too many like him. Screams, calls for medics, prayers, and long stretches of silence where men lay still and stared at nothing. By mid-morning, parts of the beach were piled with bodies. Tanks from the 741st Tank Battalion were supposed to support us. Most had sunk before reaching shore. Those that made it were quickly knocked out. Officers tried to reorganize units that no longer existed as formations. Platoons were mixed together. Some men had lost their rifles. Some had lost their helmets. Fear was constant, not panic, but something colder. The certainty that you might die without ever standing up. Sometime before noon, things began to change. Not everywhere, but enough. Small groups of infantry began pushing up the bluffs, using ravines and gaps in the German defenses. Engineers blew paths through wire and mines. Naval destroyers moved dangerously close to shore, firing point-blank into German positions. You could feel the shock waves through the ground. Once a path opened, we followed. The beach was not victory. It was survival. Beyond the bluffs, Normandy was a maze. The bocage, thick hedgerows, sunken lanes, stone farmhouses, turned every field into a fortress. German Panzer Grenadiers, supported by Panzer IVs and Stu G3's assault guns, fought from concealed positions. For medics, it was worse inland. You couldn't see where the shots came from. Men were hit suddenly. Sniper fire, mortar fragments, hidden machine guns. I treated shrapnel wounds packed with dirt and leaves. Infection set in fast. Penicillin was scarce. Rain soaked everything. Boots never dried. The smell of wet earth mixed with blood and cordite. By July, we had been fighting for weeks. The 1st Infantry Division had lost thousands of men since D-Day. Replacements arrived, younger, quieter, eyes too alert. They learned fast, or they didn't last. The Germans fought stubbornly. Many were veterans of the Eastern Front. They knew how to bleed an enemy without retreating. We moved village by village, Isigny, Caumont, nameless clusters of ruins. Sometimes civilians were still there, old men, women, children, hiding in cellars, emerging cautiously when the shooting stopped. Some thanked us. Some just stared. They had been living like this for 4 years. On July 25, 1944, the sky filled with aircraft. Operation Cobra began with a massive aerial bombardment by B-17 and B-24s. The ground shook continuously. The air smelled of burning oil and explosives. Some bombs fell short. American soldiers were killed by friendly fire. War does not apologize. After the bombing, the ground offensive broke through German lines near St. Lo. For the first time since landing, movement was possible. The hedgerows began to give way. By August, Normandy was behind us. France was opening up. But the cost stayed with us. I had treated men who lived, and men who died while I held them. I could still feel their weight in my arms. I never felt like a hero. I felt tired. Survival was not triumph. It was simply continuing. Years later, people ask what D-Day was like. They talk about bravery and glory.